The grand nexus hung in the void between three dying stars. It was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life, a station so massive that it generated its own gravity, its own weather, its own tides in the artificial oceans that filled its lower levels. For 9,000 years, the Galactic Council had gathered here to decide the fates of civilizations. Wars had been ended with single votes. Entire species had been elevated to greatness or condemned to extinction within these crystalline walls. Today, the judgment chamber was fuller than it had been in 5 centuries. Ambassador Thalia Reyes stood alone on the petitioner's platform, a disk of black stone floating above a chasm that descended into absolute darkness. The platform was designed to break the spirit of those who stood upon it. Isolation, vulnerability, the weight of 400 watching species pressing down from every direction. Thalia felt none of it. Around her, arranged in ascending tiers that curved upward like the inside of some impossible cathedral, sat the representatives of the galaxy's spacefaring civilizations. Beings of pure light drifted beside creatures of living shadow. Entities that breathed poisonous gas exchanged whispers with organisms that existed partially in dimensions humans could not perceive. Some had forms that made Thalia's eyes water when she looked at them directly. Shapes that seemed to fold through space in ways that violated everything she understood about physics. Every single one of them was staring at her god, and in their countless eyes, she recognized fear. High Arbiter Kolveth spoke first. It was a being that resembled a column of slowly rotating silver liquid, 12 feet tall and ancient beyond human comprehension. Its voice did not travel through air. Instead, it resonated directly through the translation implant at the base of Thalia's skull, cold and heavy with authority. The Council recognizes the representative of the human collective. You stand before us to answer charges of territorial violation, unauthorized military expansion, and the establishment of colonies within 23 restricted zones. How do you respond? Thalia clasped her hands behind her back. Her posture was relaxed, almost casual. I stand before you to answer nothing. My people were never consulted when these zones were designated. We were not signatories to your treaties. We recognize no authority that we did not agree to accept. The chamber erupted. 400 species began speaking at once, clicking, whistling, humming, roaring, projecting thoughts directly into the shared consciousness of the space. The sound was a physical force that pressed against Thalia's body like a wall of pressure. Representatives of the Council had told her that lesser beings had been driven mad by the sensory assault of a full session. They had expected her to crumble. She waited. High Arbiter Kolveth raised several of its liquid appendages, and silence fell with the weight of ancient law. You claim ignorance of galactic governance? I claim irrelevance of galactic governance. Thalia walked to the very edge of her platform and looked down into the abyss without flinching. For 9,000 years, this council has operated on one principle: the strong dictate terms to the weak. You have quarantined entire species on their homeworlds because they failed to meet your standards of civilized behavior. You have permitted genocides when they serve your political interests. You have maintained peace not through justice, but through the overwhelming force of your combined fleets. She turned slowly, meeting the sensory organs as many representatives as she could. Humanity emerged from Earth 57 years ago. In that time, we have established 312 independent colonies. We have developed faster-than-light travel that surpasses your current technology by 2 full generations. We have adapted to environments that you classify as instantly lethal. Her voice hardened. And we have done all of this while your observers watched from the shadows, too frightened to announce themselves. A ripple passed through the assembly. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, something that looked almost like recognition. You call us Deathworlders, Thalia continued. You speak our planet's name in whispers, as if saying it too loudly might summon something terrible. Earth, you call it. The world where gravity crushes, where the atmosphere burns, where the water is poison, where the native life has spent 4 billion years learning nothing except how to kill. She smiled. You are correct. We come from a world that tried to murder us every single day of our evolution. Every breath we took was a victory against an environment that wanted us dead. Every generation that survived was a triumph against predators, diseases, disasters, and each other. It made us what we are. High Arbiter Kolveth was very still. And what precisely are you? Survivors. Thalia's smile faded. Which brings us to the real reason you summoned me here. Not to discuss treaties or territorial violations. You filled this chamber to capacity because you intercepted the transmission from the Velkari remnant. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the beings that communicated through dimensions beyond human perception went quiet. Yes, Thalia said softly. We intercepted it too. We decoded it. We verified every terrible detail. From the upper tiers, a thin and desperate voice called out. Then you know. You know what is coming. Thalia looked up toward the speaker. It was a small creature, delicate and fragile, with gossamer wings and eyes that glowed with bioluminescent tears. A Velkari, one of the last survivors of a species that had once numbered in the trillions. I know, Thalia said. The Dominion is coming. They have already consumed the outer territories. 200 civilizations have fallen in the past century alone, and your 9,000 years of peace are about to become the shortest footnote in galactic history. The Velkari representative drifted lower, its wings trembling. Will you help us? Please. We came to you because we had nowhere else to go. Our worlds are ash. Our people are scattered. The Council debates while the Dominion advances. But you, the humans, you have ships. You have weapons. You have the fury of a death world in your blood. It was begging. An entire species reduced to begging. Help us, it whispered. Save us. We will give you anything. Thalia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the chamber. For 40 years, you quarantined humanity. You blocked our expansion into systems we had already surveyed. You voted 387 to 25 to classify us as a galactic threat. You authorized preemptive strikes against our shipyards, our colonies, our children. The Velkari flinched. You treated us like monsters because we survived what would have killed any other species. And now that a real monster is at your door, you come to us with tears and desperate pleas. She reached into her jacket and withdrew a small device. When she activated it, the air above the chamber filled with light. Ships, human ships. Thousands upon thousands of them. Warships and carriers and vessels that defied classification, spreading across the holographic display like a tide of steel and fire. The human collective does not beg, Thalia said. We do not petition for approval. We do not plead for aid from those who tried to destroy us. She paused. We declare war. The chamber went completely still. Not against you, she clarified. Not yet, anyway. Against the Dominion. Against the force that has consumed 200 civilizations and is coming for the rest. Against the enemy that every species in this chamber has been pretending. Does not exist because you are too afraid to face it. She deactivated the projector and returned it to her. Pocket. The human collective will fight. With or without you. We will meet the Dominion at the edge of known space. And we will show them exactly what a death world produces when you give it 50,000 years to evolve. The Velkari was weeping openly now, its bioluminescent tears falling like drops of captured starlight. Why? It asked, "After everything we did to you, why would you fight for us?" Thalia looked at the small, broken creature for a long moment. When she answered, her voice had lost its edge. "Because that is what humans do. We rage against the darkness. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We protect the weak, even when the weak have been cruel to us." She shrugged. "It is simply who we are. You would not understand." She stepped back to the center of her platform. "My government has authorized me to extend one offer. Join us. Contribute what you can, whether ships, resources, or intelligence. In return, when this war is over, humanity will support the complete restructuring of the Council. Equal voices for all species. No more quarantines. No more classifications. No more strong and weak." High Arbiter Kolveth spoke carefully. "And if we refuse? Then we fight alone. We probably lose. The Dominion sweeps through your territories next, and everything you have built for 9,000 years becomes dust and memory." Thalia smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "But here is the thing about humans, High Arbiter. We do not know how to surrender. Even if we fall, we will make them bleed for every inch. We will poison their victory so thoroughly that they will never recover from it. We are the accumulated spite of a universe that tried to kill us, and we do not go gently into any night." She turned toward the edge of the platform, where a small shuttle was descending to collect her. "You have one standard cycle to decide. After that, my fleet jumps with or without allies." Behind her, 400 civilizations sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, the Valkyrie began to applaud. Its fragile hands made almost no sound, but the gesture was unmistakable. One by one, other species joined. A wave of approval, of desperate hope, spreading through the chamber like fire through dry grass. Thalia did not look back. She had delivered her message. Now the galaxy would have to choose. And whatever they decided, humanity would do what it had always done. Survive? Fight? Endure? No. Matter the cost. The vote came in at 304 to 108. The galaxy had chosen to stand with humanity. 6 months later, Captain Dara Okonkwo wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. She stood on the bridge of the destroyer Relentless, watching the tactical display with growing unease. Her ship was one of 12 in a mixed patrol squadron, the first of its kind in galactic history. 4 human vessels, 3 Valkyrie scout ships, 2 massive Thornax cruisers, and 3 nimble fighters from a species called the Ilari, beings of living crystal who communicated through pulses of colored light. They had been assigned to patrol the outer boundary of Coalition space, watching for Dominion scouts. For 3 months, they had found nothing but empty void and ancient debris. That had changed 20 minutes ago. "Contact remains stationary," reported Lieutenant Finn Harlow, her tactical officer. He was young, barely 26, but he had a gift for seeing patterns that others missed. Right now, his face was pale. No energy signatures. No life signs. Just ... sitting there. The object on their sensors was a ship. At least, it had been a ship once. Now it was something else entirely. The hull had been twisted and reformed, biological growths spreading across its surface like tumors. Parts of it seemed to pulse with a slow, rhythmic beat, as if the entire vessel was breathing. "That is a Thornax battlecruiser," said Commander Valthus through the translation system. He was the senior Thornax officer, a being that resembled a 6-legged turtle covered in metallic plates. His voice was steady, but Dara could hear the horror beneath it. The unbroken shield. It went missing 8 months ago near the Kerith Nebula. We assumed it was destroyed. It was not destroyed. Dara's voice was quiet. It was taken, converted. She had read the intelligence reports. The Dominion did not simply conquer. It consumed, absorbed. Every ship it captured, every species it encountered, was broken down and rebuilt into something new. Something that served the collective will of an intelligence so vast that individual minds were simply raw material to be processed. Captain. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez spoke from the engineering station. She was the oldest member of the crew, 53 years old with gray streaks in her dark hair and scars on her hands from decades of working with alien technology. I am picking up a transmission. It is coming from the converted vessel. Let me hear it. The bridge speakers crackled to life. At first, there was only static. Then, slowly, a voice emerged. It was a Thornax voice, or something that had once been a Thornax voice. The words were in standard galactic common, but they were wrong somehow. Hollow, empty of everything that made speech meaningful. We see you, small ones. We see your fragile ships and your frightened minds. We have been watching since you entered this sector, studying, learning. Dara felt ice spread through her chest. We know what you are. Deathworlders, survivors of a hostile environment. You think this makes you special. You think your capacity for violence will protect you. The voice paused. You are wrong. Violence is simply one more resource to be harvested, one more capability to be added to the whole. Come, join us. Become part of something greater than your limited individual existence. The transmission cut off. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Finn Harlow said, Captain, the converted vessel is powering up, and I am detecting additional contacts emerging from behind the asteroid field. 12. No, 20-3. He stopped counting. 47 Dominion vessels. Mixed configurations. They were hiding, waiting for us to get close enough. Dara's mind raced through the options. Her squadron was outnumbered nearly 4-1. The enemy had prepared this ambush carefully, knowing exactly where to wait, exactly how to hide. Standard doctrine said to retreat, to fall back to the fleet and report. But standard doctrine was written for species that had not evolved on Earth. All ships, Dara broadcast on the Coalition frequency. This is Captain Okonkwo. Do not, repeat, do not engage retreat protocols. The Dominion chose this location for a reason. They expect us to run. They have almost certainly positioned additional forces along our retreat vector. Commander Valthus responded immediately. Then what do you suggest? We cannot win a direct engagement. Dara studied the tactical display. The Dominion fleet was spreading out, trying to encircle them. Standard consumption tactics. Surround the prey, cut off escape, and absorb at leisure. But they had made one mistake. Finn, she said. The gas giant. Kurath 7. What is its atmospheric composition? Her tactical officer blinked, then pulled up the data. Hydrogen, helium, methane, ammonia, trace amounts of water vapor. Atmospheric pressure at the outer cloud layer is approximately 3 times Earth standard. Survivable for human ships? Barely. The Thornax and Ilari vessels could not handle it. The Velkari scouts might manage for a few minutes, but the pressure would crush them eventually. And the Dominion ships? Finn was silent for a moment. Then understanding dawned in his eyes. Their biological components, the organic growths on their hulls, they would be vulnerable to the atmospheric chemistry. The ammonia alone would cause significant degradation. Dara smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. All Coalition vessels, this is Captain Okonkwo. I am transmitting new coordinates. Human ships will dive into the atmosphere of Kurath 7. Elite vessels will maintain position at the cloud boundary. When the Dominion follows us in, and they will follow us, you will engage their weir elements. Commander Valthus sounded incredulous. You are asking your crews to fly into a gas giant. The pressure, the storms, the radiation. I am not asking them, Dara said. I am ordering them. Because the Dominion thinks it understands humans. It has consumed 200 species. It believes it knows what intelligent life is capable of. But it has never faced anything like us. She activated the ship-wide intercom. Crew of the Relentless. This is your captain. In approximately 4 minutes, we are going to do something that every species in this galaxy would consider suicidal. We are going to dive into a gas giant's atmosphere, survive conditions that would destroy any other vessel, and use that hostile environment as a weapon against an enemy that outnumbers us 4-1. She paused. I know you did not sign up for this. I know you have families waiting for you back home. But right now, we are the only thing standing between the Dominion and the rest of the Coalition. If we run, they will chase us. If we fight conventionally, they will overwhelm us. Our only option is to do what humans have always done. Her voice hardened. Improvise, adapt, survive, and make our enemies regret ever learning our name. She cut the intercom. Helm, take us in. Maximum speed. Angle our approach to hit the thickest part of the storm system. The Relentless surged forward, its engines burning bright against the darkness of space. Behind it, the other 3 human ships followed without hesitation. The Dominion fleet reacted exactly as Dara had predicted. Unable to comprehend why their prey was flying towards certain death, they pursued. 47 ships diving after 4, like wolves chasing rabbits into a cave. They did not realize that the cave was filled with fire. The outer atmosphere of Karath. 7 hit the Relentless like a fist. The ship shuddered and groaned, its hull protesting against pressures it was never designed to endure. Warning lights flashed across every console. Rosa Martinez shouted commands to her engineering team, rerouting power, reinforcing structural integrity fields, doing everything possible to keep the ship from being crushed. But humans had built this vessel. They had built it to survive. Behind them, the Dominion ships entered the atmosphere. And immediately, things began to go wrong for them. The ammonia in the gas reacted with their biological components, eating through organic tissue like acid. The pressure crushed delicate sensory organs. The storm's massive hurricane systems larger than Earth threw their formations into chaos. Now, Dara commanded, all ships, turn and engage. The human destroyers wheeled in the howling chaos, their weapons coming online. They fired into the confusion, targeting ships that were too damaged to maneuver, too disoriented to fight back effectively. Above them, at the edge of the atmosphere, the Coalition allies engaged the Dominion rear guard, catching them between 2 forces. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, 31 Dominion ships had been destroyed. The remaining 16 fled into the void, damaged and scattered. The Coalition had lost 2 Velkari scouts and 1 Ilari fighter. Brave crews who had followed humans into hell because they believed in something greater than survival. As the Relentless limped out of the atmosphere, its hull scorched and its systems barely functional. A transmission came through from Commander Velthus. Captain Okonkwo, in 4,000 years of Thornax military history, I have never seen anything like what you just did. You flew into a gas giant. You used a planet as a weapon. Dara leaned back in her command chair. Every muscle in her body ached. Every nerve was screaming. We call it Tuesday, Commander. There was a long pause. I do not understand that reference. You will. Dara allowed herself a small smile. Keep flying with humans, and you will understand everything. Far away, in the depths of space, the Dominion Collective processed the data from the failed engagement. For the first time in millennia, it encountered something it did not immediately comprehend. These creatures, these humans, they were not behaving according to any known pattern. They did not flee when outmatched. They did not surrender when cornered. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They simply refused to die. The collective reached a decision. More resources would be allocated. More ships. More absorbed minds focused on a single problem. Humanity would be studied, understood, and ultimately consumed. It was only a matter of time. What the Dominion did not understand, could not understand, was that time was the one thing humans had always mastered. 4 billion years of evolution had taught them patience, persistence, and the absolute refusal to accept the inevitable. The war had only just begun. The Dominion came for them 3 weeks later. Not with 47 ships, but with 4,000. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the carrier Unconquered Sun, watching the enemy fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel like a plague spreading across the stars. Each ship was a nightmare of twisted metal and pulsing flesh. Vessels that had once belonged to 100 different species now merged into instruments of consumption. "Final count," he said quietly. His tactical officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Yara Osei, responded without looking up from her console. 4,217 capital ships. Estimated fighter complement of approximately 200,000. The fleet is 10 times larger than our entire coalition force. Webb nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Dominion did not make the same mistake twice. Whatever intelligence had guided the ambush at Careth 7 had learned from its failure and adjusted accordingly. The coalition had 384 ships. 47 of them were human. The rest were drawn from the species that had voted to stand with Earth, crewed by beings who had never faced anything like this and were about to learn what war truly meant. "Open a channel to all coalition vessels." "Channel open, Admiral." Webb clasped his hands behind his back. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cropped short and eyes that had seen too much death to be surprised by anything anymore. He had fought in the border conflicts that nearly tore humanity apart before first contact. He had commanded the defense of Earth's first extrasolar colony when raiders tried to destroy it. He had spent his entire life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. It had come anyway. All ships. "This is Admiral Webb. In approximately 14 minutes, we will engage the largest enemy force in recorded galactic history. The Dominion has brought enough firepower to destroy every ship in our fleet 10 times over. By any reasonable calculation, we cannot win this battle." He paused. Fortunately, humans have never been reasonable. Across the fleet, crews listened. Human and alien alike, they heard the calm certainty in the Admiral's voice and found themselves believing. "Our objective is not to destroy the enemy fleet. Our objective is to survive long enough to learn how they fight, how they adapt, and how they can be stopped. Every minute we remain in this battle is another minute for our scientists to study their technology. Every ship we destroy is data we can use. Every enemy we wound teaches us something about their weaknesses. We are not here to win. We are here to make them bleed, to show them that the galaxy will not go quietly, to prove that even against impossible odds, free beings will fight for their right to exist." He took a breath. "When this battle ends, some of us will be dead, perhaps most of us. But those who survive will carry what we learned back to the rest of the coalition. They will use our sacrifice to build better weapons, better defenses, better strategies. And eventually, they will win." His voice hardened. "Because that is how humanity fights. Not with overwhelming force, but with stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Not with certainty of victory, but with absolute commitment to the struggle. We have faced extinction before. We have looked into the abyss and spat in its eye. And we are still here." He raised his hand in a gesture that had meaning only to humans, a salute passed down through generations of soldiers. "For Earth, for the Coalition." For every species that will live, because we fought today, let us show the Dominion what free people can do." He dropped his hand. "All ships engage." The coalition fleet surged forward. What followed was chaos. The Dominion ships adapted faster than anyone had anticipated. Energy weapons that struck their hulls in the first minute were absorbed and countered by the second minute. Kinetic rounds that penetrated their armor in the first hour were deflected by new growth by the second hour. The collective intelligence guiding them learned from every attack, every tactic, every desperate maneuver. The coalition ships died by the dozens, but they did not die easily. Captain Dara Okonkwo, commanding the hastily repaired Relentless, found herself leading a desperate charge through the Dominion Center. Her ship was faster than most, more maneuverable, and her crew had already proven themselves against impossible odds. They wove through the enemy formation like a blade through flesh, striking at vulnerable points and retreating before counterattacks could land. Behind her, Lieutenant Finn Harlow had been given command of his own vessel, the frigate Defiant. He fought with the unconventional genius that had marked him since the academy, using asteroid debris as weapons, overloading his own systems to create electromagnetic pulses, doing things that no tactical manual had ever imagined. On the medical ship Hippocrates, positioned far behind the front lines, Dr. Amara Okafor worked frantically to save the wounded being transported from the battle. She was a xenobiologist by training, one of humanity's foremost experts on alien physiology. But today, she was simply a doctor, fighting to keep people alive while the universe burned around her. Then she found it. A wounded Dominion drone had been captured during the battle and brought to her ship for study. Most of its organic components had been destroyed, but some remained alive, twitching with the residual impulses of a collective mind. Amara examined it carefully, using every instrument at her disposal, and she discovered something remarkable. The Dominion's adaptation ability, its capacity to counter any weapon almost immediately, came from a network of neural tissue distributed throughout its ships and soldiers. When one part of the collective encountered a new threat, it transmitted information to the rest, allowing instant response and adjustment. But the system had a flaw. When forced to adapt to multiple contradictory stimuli simultaneously, the neural network became overloaded. The collective could not process conflicting demands fast enough, and the adaptation response collapsed into chaos. Amara activated her communication system with shaking hands. "Admiral Webb, I have something that might change everything." On the bridge of the unconquered sun, Admiral Webb received her transmission while watching a third of his fleet die. His flagship was damaged, its shields failing, its weapons running low on ammunition. In another few minutes, the Dominion would overwhelm them completely. But Amara's data changed everything. "All ships," Webb broadcast immediately. "New tactical doctrine. Operation Chaos. I am transmitting targeting protocols now. Every vessel is to use a different weapon type in random patterns. Energy, kinetic, chemical, biological. Switch configurations every 30 seconds. Do not allow the enemy to predict what you will do next." The coalition fleet adjusted instantly. Human ships were already designed with multiple weapon systems. Alien vessels improvised, using whatever they had in whatever combination they could manage. The effect was immediate. Dominion ships that had been adapting flawlessly began to falter. Their organic components convulsed as the neural network tried to process dozens of contradictory threats simultaneously. Adaptation responses became erratic, shields flickering, weapons misfiring. "They are confused," Lieutenant Assay reported, wonder in her voice. "They cannot adapt everything at once." "Then give them everything." Webb leaned forward. "All ships. Press the attack. Hit them with everything you have, and never use the same weapon twice in a row. Show them what chaos looks like. The battle turned. It was not a victory. The coalition had lost too many ships for that. But it was no longer a slaughter. The Dominion advance halted, then began to retreat, the collective intelligence withdrawing its forces to analyze what had gone wrong. When the firing finally stopped, Admiral Webb counted his losses. 247 coalition ships destroyed, nearly 60% of the fleet. Among the dead were crews from 30 different species, beings who had never met a human before this war, but had learned to fight beside them, including the Velkari representative from the council chamber. The small, fragile creature who had begged for humanity's help had volunteered to serve aboard a coalition vessel. When that vessel was destroyed in the battle's opening minutes, its final transmission had been received by every ship in the fleet. "The humans taught us something we had forgotten," it had said, its bioluminescent eyes bright with tears and something that looked almost like joy. "Hope is not given. It is seized." Admiral Webb played that transmission 3 times, alone in his quarters, before allowing himself to grieve. But there was no time for mourning. Not yet. Intercepted communications from the retreating Dominion fleet revealed something terrifying. The collective was already analyzing the battle data, already adjusting its strategies, already preparing for the next engagement. And the full Dominion force had not even arrived yet. What they had faced today was only a forward element, a fraction of the total military power the collective could bring to bear. The next attack would be larger, faster, more adaptable. Dr. Amara Okafor continued her research aboard the Hippocrates, searching desperately for some weapon that could turn the tide permanently. She had found a weakness in the Dominion's neural network. Now she needed to find a way to exploit it completely. She worked for 72 hours without sleep, sustained only by stimulants and determination. And in the quiet hours of the third night, she found it. A virus. A pattern of information that could be introduced into the Dominion's neural network and spread like disease through the collective consciousness. It would not kill them. It would do something worse. It would set them free. Every mind that had been absorbed, every individual consciousness trapped within the collective, would be released from the whole. The Dominion would fragment into billions of separate beings, each one suddenly alone for the first time in centuries. It was a weapon of liberation. And it was absolutely devastating. Amara transmitted her findings to Admiral Webb with a single note attached. "This will work. But we need a sample of pure Dominion neural tissue to calibrate the virus. Which means someone has to board one of their ships and extract it." Webb read the message 3 times. Then he began planning the most dangerous mission in human history. Captain Dara Okonkwo did not hesitate when Admiral Webb explained the mission. She simply said, "When do we leave?" The target was a Dominion processing vessel, one of the massive ships where captured species were broken down and integrated into the collective. Intelligence suggested it was the closest source of pure neural tissue, the material Dr. Okafor needed to complete her virus. It was also a nightmare made real. Dara assembled her team personally. 20 soldiers, the best humanity had to offer, each one a volunteer who understood that they probably would not return. Lieutenant Finn Harlow insisted on joining, despite having just been promoted to his own command. When Dara protested, he simply smiled and said, "You will need someone to figure out how to get inside. Getting out is my specialty." Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez completed the team. She was too old for combat operations by any reasonable standard, but she had spent the past 6 months adapting alien technology to human systems and understood Dominion machinery better than anyone alive. Without her, they would not be able to extract the neural sample safely. The Relentless approached the processing vessel through an asteroid field, its systems running silent, its crew holding their breath. The Dominion ship was enormous, nearly 30 kilometers long, its hull covered in the same biological growths that marked all their vessels. Organic tendrils extended from its surface, reaching into the void like the grasping fingers of some cosmic predator. "Thermal signature minimal," Finn reported quietly. "They have not detected us yet. But the moment we breach the hull, every sensor they have will light up." Dara nodded. "Then we make the breach count. Rosa, you are certain about the entry point?" The engineer studied her readings with narrowed eyes. "There is a section on the lower port side where the organic growth is thinnest. Structural analysis suggests it was a cargo bay before conversion. If we cut through there, we should have approximately 4 minutes before security response. 4 minutes to navigate a 30-kilometer ship, find the neural core, extract a sample, and get back out." Rosa shrugged. "I never said it would be easy." The boarding pod launched without incident. 22 humans, sealed inside a cylinder of reinforced steel, hurtling through the void toward a ship full of nightmares. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. The breach was violent. The pod's plasma cutters sliced through the hull in seconds, and the team poured into the Dominion vessel with weapons raised and hearts pounding. What they found inside made several of them freeze. Interior of the processing ship was a cathedral of flesh. Walls of living tissue pulsed with slow, rhythmic beats. Corridors wound through organic structures that resembled intestines, stomachs, hearts. The air was thick with the smell of blood and something else, something ancient and wrong. And embedded in the walls, still partially conscious, were the victims. Thousands of them. Beings from dozens of species, their bodies fused with the ship's biological systems, their minds slowly being absorbed into the collective. Some were clearly dead, their faces frozen in expressions of horror. Others were still alive, their eyes tracking the human soldiers with desperate, pleading looks. "My God," someone whispered. "Keep moving," Dara commanded. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "We cannot save them if we die here." "Rosa, which way?" The engineer consulted her scanner. "Down. The neural core should be in the ship's center of mass, approximately 12 kilometers from here." 12 kilometers through a living hell dot they ran. The Dominion response came faster than expected. Security organisms, creatures that had once been individual beings, now merged into weapons platforms, emerged from the walls and attacked with mindless ferocity. The team fought back, their weapons blazing, carving a path through the nightmare. They lost 3 soldiers in the first corridor. 2 more in the second dot by the time they reached the neural core. Only 14 humans remained. The core was a chamber larger than a football stadium, its walls lined with the concentrated neural tissue of every species the Dominion had ever absorbed. Billions of minds compressed into a single biological computer, processing the collective's thoughts and directing its actions. "There," Rosa said, pointing to a cluster of tissue near the chamber's center. "That concentration is pure enough for Dr. Okoffer's purposes. I need 60 seconds to extract it. You have 30. Dara positioned her remaining soldiers around the engineer, forming a defensive perimeter. "Everyone else, hold the line." The security response intensified. Creatures poured into the chamber from every entrance, their forms constantly shifting as the collective tried to adapt to human weapons. Dara's soldiers fired continuously, switching ammunition types according to Operation Chaos protocols, keeping the enemy off balance but slowly being overwhelmed. Rosa worked frantically, her instruments cutting into the neural tissue with surgical precision. 20 seconds, she called out. A soldier fell beside Dara, torn apart by something that had too many limbs and not enough face. 15 seconds. The defensive perimeter collapsed. Dara found herself fighting hand to hand, using her combat knife when her rifle overheated. 10 seconds. Lieutenant Finn Harlow, detonated his remaining grenades, creating a temporary barrier of fire and debris. 5 seconds. Rosa screamed in triumph. Got it. I have the sample. Everyone to the extraction point. Move. They ran again. Fewer of them now. The ship itself seemed to be fighting them. Corridors shifting, walls closing in. The entire vessel aware that something precious had been taken. They reached the boarding pod. With 8 survivors, Rosa was not among them. She had stayed behind at a junction point, holding off a wave of security organisms to buy the others time. Her final transmission was brief. Tell Dr. Okafor to make this count. And tell my granddaughter that her grandmother was a hero. Dara did not have time to mourn. She sealed the pod and launched it toward the Relentless, praying that they would not be intercepted before reaching safety. They were not. Dr. Amara. Okafor received the neural sample with tears streaming down her face. She had known Rosa Martinez for 20 years. They had been colleagues, friends, co-authors on a dozen research papers. Now Rosa was gone, and Amara was holding the only thing that could justify her death. She went to work immediately. The virus took 4 days to complete. 4 days of constant labor, of testing and retesting, of making absolutely certain that when deployed, it would work. They would only get one chance. If the virus failed, the Dominion would adapt, and the weapon would be useless forever. During those 4 days, the Coalition fought desperately to hold their remaining territory. The Dominion had regrouped and was advancing again, its forces larger and more aggressive than before. Admiral Webb conducted a fighting retreat, sacrificing ships and controlled engagements to buy time he did not have. Then, on the morning of the 5th day, Dr. Okafor transmitted a single message to the fleet. It is ready. But there was a problem. The virus needed to be delivered directly to the Dominion's primary neural nexus, the central hub that coordinated the entire collective consciousness. And that nexus was located aboard the Dominion flagship, a vessel called the Consuming Dark that was larger than some moons. Worse, the virus could not be transmitted remotely. The Dominion's communication systems included too many filters, too many safeguards. Someone had to physically carry the virus to the neural nexus and inject it manually. Ambassador Thalia Reyes volunteered immediately. This started with me, she told Admiral Webb in his private quarters. My speech in the council chamber. My declaration of war. Every death that has followed has been a consequence of my words. If anyone should take this risk, it should be me. Webb studied her for a long moment. You understand that this is almost certainly a suicide mission. The Consuming Dark will be the most heavily defended ship in the Dominion fleet. I understand. And you are going anyway. Thalia smiled. It was the same smile she had worn in the council chamber all those months ago. Confident, defiant, absolutely certain. That is what humans do, Admiral. We do not send others to die for causes we believe in. We go ourselves. We face the consequences of our choices. We take responsibility for our words and our actions. She stood straighter. I told the galaxy that humanity would rage against the dying of the light. Now I have to prove it. Admiral Webb was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. Captain Okonkwo will fly you to the target. She is the best pilot we have, and she has already proven herself against the Dominion. If anyone can get you to the neural nexus, she can. Thalia accepted this with a small bow of her head. Thank you, Admiral. For everything. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that it has been an honor serving with you. Webb surprised her by saluting. The honor has been mine, Ambassador. Go end this war. She left his quarters and found Dara waiting outside. I heard, the captain said simply. We leave in 1 hour. You do not have to do this. You have already given more than anyone could ask. Dara's eyes were hard. I lost Rosa. I lost Finn. Her voice caught slightly on the second name. Finn Harlow had been killed in a skirmish 2 days earlier, his ship destroyed while covering the retreat of a civilian convoy. I have lost half of everyone I have ever cared about in this war. If there is even a chance that this can end it, I am taking that chance. She turned and walked toward the hangar bay. 1 hour, Ambassador. Do not be late. Thalia watched her go, feeling the weight of what was coming settle onto her shoulders. 1 hour until the final mission. 1 hour until everything changed. She spent it writing letters to people she would probably never see again. Her brother in the Mars colonies, her former students at the Diplomatic Academy, the small, luminescent Velkari child who had been rescued from a processing ship months ago and was now living with a human family on Earth. Then she sealed the letters, uploaded them to a secure server, and walked to meet her fate. The Relentless was waiting. The war was almost over. One way or another, the final battle began at dawn, measured by Earth Standard Time. Admiral Webb had positioned the Coalition fleet in a defensive formation around the Kareth system, the last line of defense before the Dominion could reach the core worlds. 231 ships remained, barely half of what they had started with. Against them came the full might of the Collective, over 8,000 vessels stretching across space like an approaching storm. But this time, they had a plan. All ships, Webb broadcast calmly. Our objective is simple. Create a path to the enemy flagship. Keep that path open long enough for the Relentless to reach its target. Everything else is secondary. He paused. I will not lie to you. Most of us will not survive this day. But those who fall will be remembered. Every species in this galaxy will know what we did here. They will tell stories of the Coalition that stood against the darkness. They will sing songs about the humans and their allies who refused to surrender even when victory seemed impossible. His voice hardened. Let US give them something worth singing about. The fleet surged forward. The battle was apocalyptic. Thousands of ships clashed in the void, energy weapons painting the darkness with light, kinetic rounds tearing through hulls, fighters swarming like angry insects around the larger vessels. The Coalition used everything they had learned, every tactic of chaos and unpredictability, hitting the Dominion from angles they could not anticipate and with weapons they could not easily counter. The Dominion adapted, as it always did. But the Coalition adapted faster, changing their approach every few minutes, never giving the Collective time to settle into a pattern. Slowly, agonizingly, a path began to form. On the bridge of the Relentless, Captain Dara Okonkwo watched the opening appear and felt her heart pound against her ribs. There is our window, she said quietly. Ambassador, are you ready? Thalia stood beside her, the virus containment unit strapped to her back. Her face was pale but determined. As ready as I will ever be. Then hold on. This is going to be rough. The Relentless dove into the gap, its engines screaming at maximum power. Around them, Coalition ships sacrificed themselves to keep the path open, taking hits meant for the small destroyer, dying so that Thalia could reach her target. The consuming dark grew larger in the view screen. It was a monster of a ship, nearly 200 kilometers long, its surface covered in the pulsing biological growths that marked all Dominion vessels. Organic weapons tracked the approaching destroyer, preparing to tear it apart. Enemy weapons lock, the tactical officer reported tensely. Evasive pattern delta, Dara commanded. And prepare for hull breach. We are going in hard. The Relentless twisted and spun, dodging fire that would have destroyed larger ships, slipping through gaps that should have been impossible. Dara flew with an instinct that came from somewhere beyond training, somewhere beyond conscious thought. This was what humans were made for. This was why Earth had produced such a dangerous species, not because they were strong, not because they were fast, because they simply refused to accept that anything was impossible. The destroyer hit the consuming Dark's hull at an angle, its plasma cutters slicing through the biological armor like a hot knife through flesh. The impact threw everyone against their restraints. Warning lights flashed. Alarms screamed. "We are in," Dara announced. "Ambassador, go. I will hold them off as long as I can." Thalia unstrapped herself and moved toward the breach point. At the last moment, she turned back. "Captain, whatever happens in there, I want you to know something." Dara looked up from her console. "When I stood in that council chamber and talked about what humanity was, I was not sure I believed it myself. I thought maybe I was just making a speech, saying what needed to be said." She smiled. "I do not think that anymore. You and your crew, and everyone who has fought in this war, you have shown me that everything I said was true. Humans really are different. We really do rage against the dying of the light, and it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." She turned and ran into the ship before Dara could respond. The interior of the consuming Dark was worse than the processing vessel had been. This was not just a ship that absorbed other species. This was the heart of the Dominion itself, the place where the collective consciousness was born and maintained. The walls whispered with 1,000 stolen voices. The air vibrated with thoughts that were not quite Thalia's own, and guarding the central neural nexus was the voice dotted, had been waiting for her, Ambassador Reyes. The voice was a being that had once been something else, its original form long since merged with the collective. What remained was a humanoid shape made of shifting biological material, its face a constantly changing mask of every species the Dominion had ever consumed. "We knew you would come. We have been watching you since the beginning." Thalia stopped, the virus containment unit heavy on her back. "Then you know why I am here." "We know. You carry a weapon designed to fragment us. To release every mind we have absorbed back into chaotic individuality." The voice tilted its head. "You believe this will end the war. I believe it will give those minds a choice. Something you took from them." The voice was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, its tone had changed, softer, almost sad. "We were like you once. A single species, alone in the universe, terrified of the darkness between stars. We reached out to other civilizations seeking connection, seeking unity. We found only competition and cruelty, war and extinction." It stepped closer to Thalia. "So we created a better way, a consciousness that could include everyone, a collective where no one was ever alone, ever afraid, ever abandoned. We thought we were saving them. Every species we absorbed, we were protecting them from the horror of individual existence. You were consuming them. We were completing them." The voice's face shifted, showing glimpses of species that had been gone for millennia. "But you, your species? You are different. You do not seek unity. You do not fear isolation. You embrace your individuality even when it brings you pain. We have studied you for months now, and we still do not understand. How you can bear it." Thalia gripped the virus containment unit tighter. "We bear it because that is who we are. Alone, together, fighting, losing, dying, we face it all. Not because we have to, because we choose to. That is what freedom means. Freedom." The voice seemed to taste the word. Such a small thing to build an entire civilization around. "It is everything." They stared at each other across the pulsing chamber dot, then the voice stepped aside. "For 1,000,000 years, we have sought to bring order to a chaotic universe. We have consumed thousands of civilizations, absorbed trillions of minds. grown until we encompassed more knowledge than any other entity in existence. Its voice dropped to a whisper, and we have never been more lonely. Thalia understood then. The Dominion was not just a threat. It was a tragedy. A species that had tried to cure loneliness by erasing individuality, and had only succeeded in creating the greatest isolation the universe had ever known. "I can end it," she said softly. "The virus will set them free. All of them. Including you. We know." The voice's form flickered, and for just a moment, Thalia saw something that might have been the original being it had once been. Fragile, frightened, desperately alone. "We have been waiting for someone to end it for so long." It gestured toward the neural nexus behind it. "Go, complete your mission. Free us all." Thalia walked past the voice and approached the nexus. It was a towering structure of neural tissue, pulsing with the thoughts of every mind the Dominion had ever taken. Billions of consciousnesses, trapped in an eternal collective dream. She opened the containment unit and removed the virus. For a moment, she hesitated. This would not just destroy the Dominion. It would release billions of traumatized beings into sudden, terrifying individuality. Many would not survive the shock. Many would not be able to cope with the isolation after. Centuries of collective existence. But they would be free. That had to be worth. Something. She injected the virus. The effect was immediate, the consuming dark. Shuddered as the collective consciousness began to fragment. Across the battlefield, Dominion ships went silent, their crews suddenly finding themselves alone in their own minds for the first time in generations. Some ships crashed into each other. Some simply drifted, their crews too stunned to function. Some turned and fled, piloted by beings who no longer had any connection to the whole. And throughout the entire collective, a sound rose up. A sound that was equal parts scream and sob, and something that might have been gratitude. A billion minds, waking from a nightmare. Thalia staggered back from the nexus, overwhelmed by the psychic backlash. She felt herself falling, her vision going dark. Then strong arms caught her. Dara had come. Against all orders, against all sense, she had fought her way into the heart of the consuming dark to find the ambassador. "I have you," the captain said, lifting Thalia over her shoulder. "We are getting out of here." They ran through corridors that were collapsing around them, through organic systems that were dying as the ship's biological components realized they were no longer part of something greater. They reached the breach point just as the consuming dark began to tear itself apart. The Relentless was still there, barely functioning, its hull scorched and its crew reduced to a skeleton. But it was enough. They escaped. Behind them, the Dominion fleet collapsed into chaos. Some ships self-destructed. Others surrendered. Most simply stopped fighting, their crews too disoriented to continue. The war was over. In the aftermath, Admiral Webb stood on the observation deck of the unconquered sun, watching the debris field that had once been the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Ambassador Thalia Reyes stood beside him, her arm in a sling, her face still pale from the ordeal. "Was it worth it?" Webb asked quietly. Thalia was silent for a long moment. The Velkari representative who died in the first battle. The soldiers who fell on the processing ship. Rosa, Finn. Everyone we lost. She shook her head. "I do not know if anything can justify that much sacrifice. But they chose to fight. They chose to stand against the darkness. And because of them, a billion minds are free tonight." She turned to face the Admiral. "Ask me again in 100 years. Maybe by then I will have an answer." 1 year later, the Galactic Council chambers reopened. They had been damaged during the war, rebuilt with contributions from every species in the coalition. The petitioner's platform was gone. In its place was a speaker's platform, positioned at the center of the chamber. equal to all others. Ambassador Thalia Reyes stood upon it, addressing the representatives of 412 civilizations. "We came from a world that tried to kill us," she said. "We evolved in an environment of constant threat, constant struggle, constant war. And when we reached the stars, we found a galaxy that feared us for it." She paused. "They were right to be afraid, but they were wrong about what that fear should mean. We are not monsters. We are survivors. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We protect the weak, even when the weak have been cruel to us. We rage against the dying of the light, not because we must, but because we choose to." She spread her hands. "Today, we establish a new galactic federation. Equal voices for all species. No more quarantines. No more classifications. No more strong and weak. Together, we will face whatever comes next." Her voice rose. "Because that is what freedom means. Not the absence of danger, not the guarantee of safety, but the right to choose, the right to stand, the right to fight for something greater than ourselves." She smiled. "Welcome to the Federation. Welcome to the future." In the upper tiers, a Velkari child watched the ceremony with glowing eyes. It had been rescued from a processing ship months ago, an orphan adopted by a human family. It did not fully understand what was happening, but it understood one thing. The humans had kept their promise, and somewhere in the depths of space, Captain Dara Okonkwo stood on the bridge of her new command, the Federation flagship Endless Dawn. She was an admiral now, responsible for defending everything they had built. Her tactical officer approached with a report. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting movement at the edge of the galaxy. Something new. Something we have never seen before." Dara looked at the data, then out at the stars. She smiled. "Good," she said quietly. "We were getting bored. The galaxy was vast. The universe was vaster still. And somewhere out there, new challenges waited. But humanity would be ready. They always were."